Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right. As you heard, I am Jake Hurd. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Urbandale, Iowa. Pretty much lived there my whole life, other than when I was getting my education at University of Iowa and Drake. Let's see, I've got two brothers. One of them's here with me today. A fine-looking man over there. By trade, I am a criminal defense attorney. Thank you. Woo! Prior to being a criminal defense attorney, I worked as a legislative analyst for the Iowa Senate Republicans for 4 years, and then also chief of staff to the Iowa Senate President, Jake Chapman, for 2 years during the 2021 and 2022 session. Let's see. There are two reasons why I really shouldn't be on this stage. One is Marco Battaglia was the original nominee that was supposed to be the candidate for the Libertarian Party to run for the 3rd Congressional District. He was removed from the ballot because he wanted to run under the name that everyone knows him by and the name that he goes by. His real name is Mark Anderson, but because he wanted to appear on the ballot as Marco Battaglia, he got removed from the ballot by Republicans, by Secretary Paul Pate and Attorney General Brenna Bird. Marco also ran for this same seat in 2024, but was also removed from the ballot. And that time it was a technicality for the Libertarian caucus and county conventions being held the same night, instead of there being a day separation. I ended up arguing that case in front of the Iowa Supreme Court to try to keep Marco as well as the other congressional candidates on the ballot, but was unsuccessful. And this cycle, same thing happened again. Republicans found a technicality to remove Marco from the ballot. And the second reason why I shouldn't be on this stage is right now, I'm not officially a candidate on the ballot for the November general election. The Libertarian State Committee voted about 2 weeks ago to replace Marco, as well as Nick Gluba and Jules Cutler for the governor and lieutenant governor seats. When we turned in our nomination papers this last Monday, 2 days later, the Secretary of State's office said that the proper procedure wasn't filed with their office in time, and therefore he's not accepting my candidacy, as well as the governor and lieutenant governor's candidacy, to appear on the November 3rd general election ballot. So there is a petition filed in the Polk County District Court right now. We'll get a ruling Thursday on whether or not we can force the Secretary of State to approve of our nominations and put us on the ballot. But I want to spend my time up here not talking about my platform, my policy issues. I want to talk about the problems and risks our current political system, dominated by the two political parties, has to our liberty, our freedom, and ultimately our democratic republic. The two political parties agree on one thing, and that's guaranteed, and it's that they're going to remain the two parties as far as they can help it. As I said earlier, I was a legislative analyst and chief of staff for the Senate Republicans. I've been in those meetings behind closed doors, and I've heard the conversations when Democrats and Republicans are negotiating election bills. They make sure that their interests, no matter what, are taken care of. And they both agree that there shouldn't be a third party in the running. One of the biggest risks and problems that are posed by only a two-party system is that nothing gets done when there's a policy issue that has to be decided when there's split control. And when one party does control, you get their policy preference, and then when, as nature happens, the parties shift, and you get a huge policy pendulum, a big rubber band effect, so to speak. One other danger and risk that a two-party system poses is that when one party controls both legislative and executive branch, like it's been in Iowa for over a decade now, I believe, there's no checks and balances anymore. Our whole system of government was built on checks and balances. But when you have a Republican governor and a Republican legislature, that check goes away, because that party isn't going to want to embarrass or reduce the power of their governor, so to speak. This can be best exemplified by what happened in Iowa during COVID-19. Our governor passed executive orders with a swipe of a pen that precluded families from gathering for holidays, that precluded people from gathering for religious services and religious worship. In our legislature, allegedly Republicans that believe in freedom did nothing to check that power. To this day, they have done nothing to check that power. No governor should have the ability to decide which industries are essential, what job is essential, but yet our governor did that, and our legislature has done nothing to stop it or prevent it in the future. When we go to the ballot box, all Iowans are given a false choice right now. It's either Democrat or Republican. If you vote for a Libertarian, you're wasting a vote. If you vote for an independent, you're wasting a vote. That is a false choice. There are other options out there. The Libertarian Party is one of them, but that's not the only one. Every Iowan can have a good idea, have a good policy solution. But when you're limited to just Democrats and Republicans, it gives you a false choice and a false idea or premise that there's only two solutions. And also, when you have two-party control, when you go to the ballot box, when you vote for the person that has a D or an R next to their name, you're voting for the D or R. You're not voting for that candidate. The candidate is merely the vessel by which the Democrat or Republican Party gets in control. During my time in the Senate, it became very obvious to me that power has become centralized in the majority leaders of the respective houses. The majority leader in the Senate, for example, gets to decide which bills come to the floor for a debate. They get to decide which of their members are on which committees, who's the chair and who's the vice chair and ranking member, or not the ranking member, but the vice chair and chair. The members of the Senate are beholden to the majority leader for their power in the legislature and also for their campaign financing. Because as the majority leader has the ability to call bills to the floor, that person logically gets the most support or donations from lobbyists trying to get their bill past the chambers. And when a member doesn't do what the majority leader wants, guess what? They get removed from that committee. And guess what? They don't get as much from the majority fund as they should. And I mainly want to use this platform to let you all Iowans know that Republicans, and it's only because Republicans are in power right now, but Republicans are systematically and intentionally removing Libertarians in particular from the ballot. Republicans believe that Libertarians take votes away from them, so they don't want us on the ballot. And that's what happened in 2024 when all three Libertarian congressional candidates were removed from the ballot. And it's happening again in 2024. The Libertarian candidate for governor, for example, got over 8,000 petition signatures, 8,000. But because of a Secretary of State election worker telling the lieutenant governor candidate her affidavit of candidacy wasn't needed, they were removed from the ballot. And then for their replacement, Nick Gluba for governor was replaced by himself, and then Charles Aldrich, or Chuck Aldrich, was voted on to replace Jules Cutler for lieutenant governor. They're in the same situation I am. Secretary of State's office is refusing to accept their nomination and to put them on the ballot, as well as me on the ballot. And like I said, we do have a court case going to force the Secretary of State to do that, but it's unclear at this point. Our founding fathers were exceptionally wise. If you have read the Federalist Papers, or if you haven't read the Federalist Papers, I strongly recommend you do. James Madison wrote in Federalist number 10 that factions or political parties pose a risk to our democratic republic. They will ultimately lead to a tyranny of the majority, which it seems like we're getting close to here in Iowa, where Republicans don't even want to let the voters of Iowa have another option besides them in the Democrat Party. This is now the second cycle in a row that the governor candidate and congressional candidates for Libertarian parties have been removed from the ballot based on technicalities. And if this continues, I fear for our democratic republic and for our freedom here in Iowa. It shouldn't be that tough to let the people of Iowa choose. If Republicans believe their policy ideas win the day, then they should be able to face any challenger on the ballot. But yet there's this myth that libertarians steal from Republicans, and there's a lot of close races allegedly this year, and Republicans don't want Iowans to have any other option to solidify or to continue their power. And again, I'm Jake Hurd. I hope to be on the ballot for the Congressional U.S. Representative for the 3rd Congressional District. But as of right now, I am not officially a candidate, and we will find out on Thursday. Thank you.